guys, so today I'm going to cover a subject that I'm definitely going to need to refer to my notes for. So this subject is the narcissist or sociopath, gaslighting, how that, some different types of gaslighting, how they may use it, and its effect on you and causing you anxiety. So really, when you're dealing with a covert manipulator and you're dealing with like a covert narcissist or like a sociopath, now remember this, it is a spectrum, right? So you can have like somebody that has like narcissistic tendencies, and it can work all the way up to a sociopath. And it could be like somebody who narcissistic tendencies, and then somebody with full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, and then a sociopath, etc., etc., and even to a psychopath. But most psychopaths, I believe actually all of them are also narcissists, or a lot of them, from my understanding. Although I've seen different videos on that some psychopaths might not be narcissists because they don't care what anyone thinks of them, right? Because a narcissist is really concerned with what others think. So some things that you need to be aware of when you're dealing with a covert narcissist. This is their biggest driver in life is to control, but they want to control without appearing as if they're controlling. It's all about a very subtle form of control, and it's all about them needing to be in the superior position and you are inferior. And they always pick somebody where they can place themselves in that position, because if they don't have a partner to feel superior to, then who do they have to compare to? They need to have somebody so that they feel superior, right? So usually they'll identify somebody's weakness so they can exploit that, so they can feel like in the one-up position, whether it be they're exploiting somebody who has less money than them and they're in the one-up position because they have more money and that gives them control, or sometimes they exploit somebody by, this sounds weird, but by finding somebody who's like far less attractive than them, because then they get to feel like they're better looking and that person's less good looking, like in the inferior position, right? So here are some of the methods that they're going to use for the gaslighting. They're going to use intermittent reinforcement, and that is where they'll love bomb you, and they'll be totally interested in you, and find out everything there is to know about you. They ask all these questions, they're all warm, and then they go dark. And they go dark for a couple of days, or they don't text you regularly, or they don't call you back, or when you're with them they're just sort of cold and detached. Intermittent reinforcement. They want you to stay confused. They want you to feel off kilter. They do not want you to have a clear or fixed notion of how they feel about you or where they are in the relationship. They really, really want to keep you in the guessing game, keep you confused, keep you like trying to work for their approval, right? They love that. Oh my God, they love that. 2, data collection. They will entice you to share personal information. And if they're the coverts, they can do this in such a compelling way where they're so gentle and they act like they're so interested, and they ask you questions to find out like all these things about you, and they're so interested and compassionate, but you'll notice that what they'll do is they're putting it in a file cabinet, and in that file cabinet they are going to use it to hurt you later. That's why during the discard, every single bit of information you gave them about your vulnerabilities, about your fears, about your anxiety, they literally use all of those things in the most exquisitely tailored way to hurt you specifically. And that's exactly what they're doing with the news source of supply right now. They're gathering information, putting it in a file cabinet so they can use it to manipulate, hurt, and exploit that person later. You think they're curious about you. Wrong, they're not. And then you'll notice this during the data collection. When this is happening, notice this. They're extracting information from you and they're acting so kind and friendly, but they are not, it's not reciprocal. Notice they're not sharing their inner selves with you. They'll give you like a few breadcrumbs or a few morsels here and there, but they're not reciprocating. They're not telling you about their feelings, their anxieties, their fears, stuff that happened to them that hurt them. They'll even lie, like, they could have been cheated on in past relationships, or they could have cheated. They'll absolutely lie about that. The one I was with absolutely lied about that. And you may be saying, like, like I said, hey, I just want you to know that, when I was in my alcoholism and addiction, I was unfaithful to my first husband. And when I was in my early 20s, I gave that information. And then the narcissist I was with said, oh, I understand. You're going to need to tell me some things, that are really, that you did in the past, that, you did when you're drinking. And I really understand that. I'm here to listen for you. And instead, that would have been a great time for this person to tell me that he'd actually been a cheater and been cheated on, but no information, right? So, and then true lies. Notice they do not, true lies. This is an example of true lies. This is a real example. You could ask, are you having an affair with that married lady at work with 3 children, right? Because that's what you suspect. That's what you, in your gut, heart of hearts, knows what is happening. And the narcissist looks at you and says, that's absurd. And you know what? That's a true lie. It is absurd to be having an affair with a married lady with 3 kids, to be, like 3, 5, and 7-year-olds, to be going on hikes with that person while you're still with your wife, while she's still with her husband. Your wife has no idea you're having an affair. You go on hikes with that person and her 3 children. Are you kidding me? That is absurd. Totally absurd. So, but notice it's actually the truth. That's absurd. And of course, the recipient's like, wait a minute. So, that just creates a horrible confusion. Of course, because you think what they're saying is, no, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. No, what they're saying is, it's true. It's actually true. It is absolutely absurd, but it's their way of lying. So that's an example of a true lie. And then sometimes it could be just totally lying to your face. This is another real life example. Hey, I remember you had that red jacket on the first time that we met. Years later, I don't have a red jacket. I didn't have a red jacket on. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you had a red jacket on. I remember it specifically. It was like, I think it was like a North Face jacket. I remember it. No, I don't have a red jacket. And then like a couple years later, I find a red jacket and I'm like, oh my God, that's the same red jacket. And then I find a picture of this person with the red jacket on. It's like, what a weird thing to lie about. But that's just like a straight to your face lie. But the true lies are more the example that I gave about saying, that's absurd. Okay, then 4. So trying to shape how your feelings and interpretation. So you think that this is your partner, your spouse, your confidant, that you think this is a person that you should be able, that you can confide in about your feelings and, things that your anxieties or your sort of issues that you have with other people. Because in a marriage, a partnership that's true and authentic and emotionally intimate, you can share those things and you can get some really good feedback and how to sort of deal with people and how to go back to the love, how to go back to love with people and that sort of thing. But when you're sharing that with the covert narcissist, their whole thing in this is for them to feel superior, and they are going to demean you and criticize you in a possibly very subtle way. So basically intimating to you that however you handle the situation, however you're interacting with your friends or the person you're having conflict with is, ridiculous, and you're just, they're superior, they know how to interact with people, you don't, you're really creating this problem, right? But then when you look and you see that these are people that actually don't have any good relationships with other people, all their relationships are surface, shallow, they're not even real, they're not even having conflict with others because in general, this is what the coverts, in general, they send this massive perfection. They're not real. They're not having authentic relationships with anyone. And, most people who meet them are like, that person's super weird. They're so closed off. They're so shut down. They don't communicate. They're not funny. So like this is somebody who has almost like no functioning relationships. And here they are judging your interactions when you're trying your best to sort of work through conflict. And you could be somebody that has tons of friends and really well connected, and you're able to negotiate through difficult patches in your relationship by telling the truth and being authentic and going to somebody when you have a problem with them and trying to work it out. You can do it sometimes successfully, sometimes not. That's life. But you're able to do that with people. You have these relationships, right? But the whole time that you're trying to communicate with them in a sort of partnership way, they are making it so they're superior, you're inferior. Somehow they're better than you, you're less than. Everything you do is less than, they're superior, right? Okay. Number 5, they bar you from communicating about a problem. You could go to them and you're trying to communicate about a problem, like, hey, there's something going on with our physical intimacy. What's the issue here? What's going on? The real issue is they have a secret sex life. They're having sex with other people, the internet, a porn addiction, sex addiction, whatever. But you're trying to address it thinking that maybe you have a part, or is there something you could do to make it better? And what they do is they completely either invalidate your feelings completely, invalidate your experience, or they'll stonewall, they'll use silent treatment, they'll use word salad communication. You go to them with a legitimate problem. Hey, I'd like to have intimacy more often. What's going on here? Why has it been 3 months? Why has it been 4 months? Like, what's going on here? And they turn it back around on you to where you're walking away from that communication thinking that it's your fault. Like, you went to them with a legitimate issue of trying to fix or restore or repair something in the relationship, and then you walk away and they've turned it back on you and made it your problem. Like, somehow you're the issue rather than the truth of what the real problem is in the relationship, right? And then again, during this time, you have to notice that they do. Let's see. I'm curious. Okay, so one thing to note is they seem to be. They are not curious about you. That's another thing. They're not curious about you. They are not really curious about your internal life. They're just not. They do not, you'll notice after a while that they do not share on a deep level. When you're first with them, you feel like they're really curious about you. They're love bombing. They want to know everything there is to know about you. They're finding out all this information. They want to know about your family, about your feelings, about this, about that, right? They're asking all these questions. They seem deeply interested. They're, sort of almost mesmerized by you. That is a ruse. That's a love bombing, but they're doing that, right? But you'll notice that they do not let themselves be vulnerable, right? So they're always in a superior position. They are withholding information. They are not sharing with you at a deep level. You'll notice after time. In love bombing, you have a facade. You feel like they are. They'll share a little bit of things with you. They'll, listen to you. They'll absorb, extract all sorts of information from you. But after time, you're just going to realize that they're not sharing on a deep level. You don't really know this person. And if you ask anyone in their life about them, they're going to say the same thing, that they don't really know, like, what motivates this person, what's their driver, what's their, how do they feel about things. Even if you may talk to one of their parents, and the parent may even say something like, oh, this person isn't motivated by money, and you know for a fact that's one of their primary motivators, money and power. And you may laugh at that because you're like, oh my gosh, like, this person's own parent doesn't know them, which is super weird, right? So, after a while, you're just realizing that this is how they keep their power. They don't share of themselves. They don't allow themselves to be vulnerable. They are not authentic. They're not sharing their feelings. They're not sharing their inner life. They're not sharing their hurts, their fears, their pains. And it doesn't matter if you've been with them 10, 15, 20, 25 years. When you're with a covert narc, you are with somebody who is you're just with somebody who's wearing a mask, and there's this emptiness behind it. Like, there's nothing there. Like, this is a facade, and they are not sharing with you whatsoever. So they're just, they're totally extracting information, feeding on your emotions, manipulating you, gaslighting you, and not being authentic, not sharing of themselves, not being open, not being honest. And what this does, what all of this gaslighting does, is it absolutely, makes you question yourself. It gives you incredible anxiety. People that are in these relationships often have all sorts of autoimmune disorders because they have like IBS, they have like anxiety, they have just all these autoimmune disorders because their body is literally screaming at them, this is not the truth, this is not the truth, this person is a liar, but their head is listening to what the narcissist is doing, their manipulation tactics, right? And of course they're using intermittent reinforcement, they're using gaslighting, stonewalling, silent treatment, they're using all of this, incredible mind games. They're playing mind games with you. Like it's a game. These people are game players. They love to play games. You'll notice they love to play chess. They love to play Scrabble. They love to play games with cats like they're like a toy. And basically what you are to them is you're just a toy, right? That's all you are. You're a toy. They're playing a game. And the next source of supply, that's their other toy. And, their past supplies, these are all their toys that they love to play with. Like, you're not a human to them. You're interchangeable. You're disposable. I don't care how special you think you are. You're not. You're going to be disposed of and thrown out the window just like all the other sources of supply. Of course, during the love bombing, it's hard for people to see this because this narcissist or sociopath is so seemingly into them and like so fascinated and finding out everything there is to know about them and giving them everything that would make them happy. Like, if this person, they're mirroring. So if you love rock climbing, they're going to go rock climbing with you. If you love to surf, they're going to surf with you. You love outdoor activities, they're going to do that. If you love burritos, they're going to eat burritos. But the new source of supply, if they love drinking beer and going to baseball games and eating Fritos, that's what they're going to do, So it's just whatever, they're going to mirror so you feel like you've really met, your soulmate. Be careful when somebody says, I've never felt this way before. I've never been this happy. You're my soulmate. If somebody's saying that stuff to you early on in a relationship, those are actually red flags. Because how can a 35, 40, 45-year-old have never felt that way before and they've only met you like 3 weeks ago? Come on. Or they've known you for a long time, but they've only had like a romantic relationship with you for 3 weeks because the way they've known you was very surface for a long time, sort of at work. So this is just some of the stuff to really pay attention to here. I mean, these are their tactics. If somebody's using intermittent reinforcement, they're love bombing, they're taking away, they're withholding communication, they're withholding intimacy, they're withholding compliments, they're withholding physical affection, they're withholding information. Anyone is using these tactics. These are highly manipulative tactics. These are what gaslighters do. These are what narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, sex addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics, this is what they do. So, people that are active in these addictions. So if this is happening to you, man, you really need to pay some attention to it. And of course, exit the relationship as soon as you can. Go no contact. Get away from these people. They don't change. Because in their mind, there's nothing wrong with them. Again, we've talked about they're total perfectionists. They think they're perfect. It's everyone else is the problem. They use projection, deflection, all of these, maladaptive sort of communication strategies that are very, very dysfunctional and unhealthy in a relationship. But if any of this is happening or going down for you, I really, really, really recommend that you start reading some books. I read the book Psychopath Free by Jackson McKenzie, and then the book Whole Again, also by Jackson McKenzie. Those are two I really recommend. You can read Dr. George Simon's book, Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. It's about covert manipulators. You can read Ross Rosenberg's book called The Human Magnet Syndrome. That is a really, really excellent book, all about how codependent and a narcissist are often attracted to each other because a codependent tends to take on more responsibility than is their fair share, and they think everything's their fault. A narcissist can't accept any responsibility for anything they do, and they have to find somebody, a scapegoat, to project and blame for all their problems. So it's this sick, toxic dance, take over responsibility, under responsibility, and they get, they're attracted to each other because it's like two pieces of this toxic, dysfunctional puzzle. So if you relate, if you feel that you're a codependent, there's definitely help for that. There's Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. There's also Pia Melody's book called How to Change the Way You Love. That's a really good book. Talks about, she uses like the terms love addict and love avoidant, so that's sort of applicable here. Like love addict's sort of like the codependent, the avoidant is the narcissist. It's a toxic dance. It all has to do with attachment issues in childhood. Both of these dysfunctional ways of being are to do with maladaptive attachment that they got from their primary caregiver rather than secure attachment. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to heal from this. And, I definitely recommend, going to Codependence Anonymous if you're willing to. Whether or not you actually accept that label or not, you probably have some of those characteristics, and you can learn a lot in that program for sort of learning how to operate in a relationship in a much healthier fashion. The primary purpose of CODA is to have healthy and loving relationships. That's such a cool primary purpose. If you're curious about CODA, Google patterns and characteristics of codependence from the CODA literature. If you do that, I think you're going to see that, codependency might not be what you think it is. It's certainly, once I really learned what it was, I realized there's all these different ways of operating in relationships, and not all codependents are the same. It doesn't mean that you're just dependent on somebody else. That's not actually what it means at all. So I highly recommend looking at the patterns and characteristics, and you're going to get an idea of what it really means to be sort of codependent or have those characteristics. And again, it's all learned behavior. You learn this in childhood. This had to do with your attachment issues. Same with narcissism. My opinion, at least on codependence, is if it's learned, it can be unlearned. My opinion on narcissism is actually the same, but the problem with that particular structure is the defense mechanisms that narcissists have created are, I must be perfect, I must be perfect, I must be perfect. So I can't admit that there's anything wrong with me. I can't take any personal responsibility, because that would intimate that I'm less than perfect. And if I'm less than perfect, then I'm nothing. I'm just, I'm just nothing. I might as well just die or whatever. So they can't, their ego is so fragile, they cannot acknowledge that there's anything wrong with them. So typically they don't go to therapy, they don't get help, they don't go to recovery. So unfortunately, these people are, because they don't seek help, they never, or very often, they can't identify that there's anything wrong. They think it's everybody else's problem. They think it's all the other 7 billion people on the planet. That's the problem, not them. So again, that inability to perform self-reflection or introspection or to take any sort of personal responsibility, and this need to be perfect, prohibit them from doing the deeper work to accept that perhaps that they have this sort of narcissistic tendencies or narcissistic personality disorder, and that there's some help for it. The help is learning how to take some personal responsibility. Start doing esteemable things. Stop cheating, lying, gaslighting, manipulating. Stop treating people like crap. There's all sorts of different ways that you can learn how to do this. So anyway, I know this was a really long one, but I just wanted to go down some of the characteristics and the patterns of what you might be dealing with when you're dealing with gaslighting and a covert manipulator. So thank you so much, and I hope today that you guys are thriving. You're drinking plenty of water, you're getting exercise, you're communicating and spending time with loving, healthy, amazing people. You're getting lots of hugs. You are doing, meditation, prayer, with the spiritual group. I hope that you're just loving yourself and having a really wonderful day. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.